Hello, pianist. Have you always wanted to play Beethoven's famous Moonlight Sonata? Many beginners think that this masterwork is relatively simple, but it actually has many pitfalls or challenges that the beginner might not be aware of or be able to play to its full charm yet. I will explain more after my demonstration and give concrete step-by-step guidance on how to learn a simplified yet beautiful arrangement of this piece efficiently and successfully. This arrangement can serve as a stepping stone for you to learn how to approach the pitfalls to one day be able to play the original. This beautiful arrangement by Renfro is available for you to learn along with me in Alfred's Group Piano for Adults, Book 1, 2nd edition on pages 276 to 277. You can find the link for this book in the description below this video. You may have noticed that this lush arrangement utilizes the same key of C sharp minor of the original. Very similar types of harmonies, so you can transfer the chords you learned from this arrangement to the original. Intro is exactly the same. A section, I'll talk about how it simplifies it, but you still get the same melodic notes. It cuts that less familiar B section, but you can learn the melody here and the chords to learn the original one day. The beginner might not realize how very difficult it is within the original Moonlight Sonata to voice out that melody. Let me explain further. If we look at the score of the original, looking at measure 5, we have left hand in these full 3-note chords. And then the right hand melody has to be played by that weaker 5 finger, while we have to also play another layer. There's 2 layers in the hand, melody and accompaniment. And the accompaniment is played with strong fingers, 1, 2, 3. So you have to manage playing that top note louder. And as if that's not difficult enough to manage 2 layers within the one hand, it's done with an expanded hand position of constant octaves. You have to employ very good technique of wrist circles to play and relax, or you can become very tense as you play this piece. There are some ninths used. If we look at the original, at measure 8 here, starts in an E major chord with a 6th, 9th. Can be managed, but give yourself some time to develop proper technique. So this arrangement of Moonlight Sonata helps the beginner learn how to approach these pitfalls before you play the original. Let me explain more. It helpfully separates out those two layers that the original right hand had to play into two parts. If we look at the arrangement, measure 5, the melody is played by just the right hand. Left hand takes the triplets. You can learn how to manage that rhythm of 16ths over triplets. You can learn how to voice that right hand louder. They're both in much smaller hand positions, so you can learn to play and relax with good wrist circle technique. So then you can transfer that to those two layers within the right hand of the original piece. If you learn to work on everything at once within a piece, you might feel very frustrated. Instead, I've designed my Bronson musical learning pyramid to help you learn pieces systematically in steps, similar to working through levels of a game. The pyramid learning approach will help you tackle different challenges one at a time and set a solid foundation to gradually progress to the highest level. Take your time in the process. You might need to rewatch this video several different times. Use the chapters to quickly access what you need to learn. Take your time at each level before you go on to the next one. For example, in this piece, we're just going to take some time with the rhythm to go over those 16ths, over the triplets, notes. Stay tuned. I'll show you how to block through these chords so you can process it very quickly to transfer to the original. Articulation, I'll show you those wrist circles. I've been showing you my demonstration in the right hand and the left hand wrist circles. In dynamics, we'll spend some time with how to voice out that melody, how to add some beautiful nuances within the micro and macro shaping levels. The style and mood, I'll coach you on how to add some rubato. So stay tuned, jump ahead as you need to those different chapters for you to learn. All right, pianists, let's start with the rhythm category of our musical learning pyramid. So just a brief summary of what you're going to learn in this category. We'll go over how to practice that primary challenge of the 16ths, over the triplets, how to feel that quarter pulse. We'll talk about the time signature. That way you can process that automatically to voice the melody in time. We'll start with our time signature. For this arrangement, it uses a common time of 4/4, so we'll feel the quarter pulse. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you look at the original, it does use a cut time, so you want to be able to process this where you're feeling more of 2 beats per measure, but starting here will help you transfer well to that cut time feel. To get a feeling of the pulse, I would go back to that demonstration. Just practice tapping along with it to get a feeling of the triplets before you try to learn some of these rhythms with me here. For the repetitive rhythms of our rhythm category, it's full of these triplets all the way throughout. Every measure has a triplet up to the very last measure of this piece, the arrangement, and the original. So for the triplets, you can count those as a 1 and a 2 and a. I've written in the counts for that first measure, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. Notice I'm still giving an emphasis to the quarter note beat all the way through. Avoid going too slow or you'll get away from a long sense of melody that we'll need in time. For a performance goal, I would suggest about 52 to 60, maybe even a little bit slower than that. It is in the romantic style, so we'll use a sense of rubato, that push and pull or fast or slower of the tempo. You can go ahead to the style and mood if you're interested in learning more about rubato right now. All right, pianists, let's get to the rhythmic complexity of this piece. We're going to jump right ahead to measure 5. We have the melody comes in at 16ths. I'm going to talk about the counting for each hand. So the right hand for 16ths would be 4E and a 1, 2, 3, 4E and a 1. So the 16th really feels like a pickup to the next measure, might be the best way to think about that. Think about the right hand back at measure 5, beat 4, divides into 4 parts. The left hand for the triplets divides into 3 parts. So the right hand 16th will go after that left hand last triplet note. Let me demonstrate that slowly. 2, 3, 4. You can do a simple tapping exercise with me. I use the words just to align the hands as both together, left or right. So at measure 5, it would look like this: both, left, left, right, both. To get that syncopation, you could go through and isolate all of the spots along with me in my demonstration. One spot that changes between the hands is measure 23 in the coda. Notice the left hand has the 16th melody and the right hand now has the triplet. So I'll play it. You can practice tapping it with me. So we have both, right, right, left, both, 2, 3, both, right, right, left, both. Get that syncopation. Spend some time to get that very solid, since that's a quintessential part of this arrangement and the original, before you go on to the note reading. All right, pianists, within note reading and fingering category, we're going to talk about the primary pitfall of the beginner trying to memorize every single note of this piece. Within this arrangement alone of 28 measures, if you think about just the triplets alone, there are 325 different notes that you have to manage. That's a lot of notes to memorize. I would suggest perhaps that you reduce it down into blocked chords. you'll be 90% more efficient as there are only 43 different chord changes. And of those 43 different chords, there are only 8 unique different chords, which is much easier to think 8 chords versus 325 notes. So how do we get there? We first think in our key. Let's look at our key signature of 4 sharps. For sharps, we look at the last sharp, which is a D sharp. You go up 1/2 step. This could be in the key of E major. This piece does not sound like major. Relative minor, down 3/2 steps. This is definitely in C sharp minor, the original key as well. So I'd suggest you warm up on a couple things. Start with your 5-finger scale if you know that better than your octave scales. If you know your octave scales, I would play harmonic form, which will help you on the harmonies coming up. Definitely warm up on your chords since the primary patterns are blocked chords here. 1, F sharp minor, C sharp minor, G sharp 7, and C sharp. And those are 3 of the primary chords out of those 8 that I'd mentioned that Beethoven uses within this piece and the original. All right, pianists, let's get to reducing those chords down into their blocked structure. So I've given you some notes to know where to start. The right hand starts on a G sharp 3 below middle C. You'll notice there's a 4th and a 3rd. That makes a second inversion C sharp minor chord. I'm gonna go ahead and add the left hand along with it. You can play hands separate through this demonstration and go back and repeat it again. Left hand starts in octaves C sharp number 2 and number 3. The intro is just like the original here. I'm gonna go through and block the chords on quarter note beats. Notice I've just used lead sheet symbols as the Roman numerals are a little advanced. So I have C sharp minor, look ahead, left hand has a B passing tone, measure 3 is A major, the 6th chord. Here we have a D major over F sharp. I'm gonna pause just one moment. This is the only Roman numeral I gave you because it's so significant to this piece and really classical music in general. This is called the flat 2/6. It's the 2 chord in first inversion, also called the Neapolitan chord. You'll see this also marked as the N6 as well. Just a brief background on this chord. It was given this name as it was associated with the Neapolitan opera school from composers of the 18th century. What they've done is they've taken our normal 2 chord, which would be D sharp diminished, by lowering just the root of it a 1/2 step, the flatted 2, completely changes the style from very dark diminished to a 2, which is major and bright. Just makes kind of more of a hopeful leading to that 5 chord. So you'll note that he uses this in this arrangement and the original. So let's jump back in with our blocking right in that Neapolitan chord, measure 3. G sharp 7, C sharp minor, little passing tone, G sharp 7, C sharp minor. Changing inversions, follow the fingering. Left hand blocks the chords now. It's the accompaniment. C sharp minor, G sharp 7, C sharp minor, F sharp minor, E major, which is the relative major. It's B7, back home to E. Fingering change in the right hand, 3, B7, fingering change. Back to E, G sharp 7, C sharp minor, G sharp 7. Here's the Neapolitan, the N6, G sharp 7, C sharp minor. Little mode mixture, C sharp major. Here's that minor 4, C sharp major. Here's a repetition of 15. Measure 18, C sharp major, F sharp minor, B over D sharp, E major, A over C sharp, D sharp diminished, G sharp, C sharp minor, F sharp minor over A. There's the 1-6-4, G sharp cadence back to C sharp minor. Notice here, there's a clef change at measure 23. Right hand has a C sharp chord, and the left hand is on a G sharp number 2. G sharp 7. Down to C sharp 2. One new pattern, this is used in the original, C sharp minor arpeggio, which is that black key fingering. Goes all the way up to a C sharp number 6. There's other tutorials to be able to practice that arpeggio by itself. The reduction practice does take quite a bit of concentration to start, but think about how many notes you're reducing down to make yourself much more efficient from those 325 notes down to 43 chords. Also is dual purpose. It really helps solidify the rhythm of that 16th. You feel the quarter notes and that triplet pulse. I was also adding pedal, which you can learn how to do within the articulation category. Once you have those chords blocked within the quarter notes, I would suggest you reduce it down to just the chord changes so you can get those fingering shifts. I'll just demonstrate a little bit of this. Let me go into measure 5. Wherever the hand position is changing, I would block that. So every beat here changes. So we have C sharp minor, first inversion, second inversion, root. Here, leave off the repeats. Measure 7, C sharp minor, F sharp minor, E, B. That might be best to even just play the left hand by itself. So just practice all of the chord changes with the goal of making them very automatic so their technique can be added and they can be played lightly. All right, pianists, we've made it to the articulation category of our Bronson musical learning pyramid. The main pitfall that I would like to address here is beginners just playing with the strength of their fingers only, which will create a very shallow sound. With all of the constant triplets, your hand might become very tense and fatigued playing that way, leaving no room for dynamic expression. I would suggest perhaps that you use more wrist circles so you can add in some ease in playing and add dynamic expression. Let me talk you through that. So the right hand triplets, as you go away from the body, is going to scoop under, over, which brings your arm weight down beautifully on the quarter note beat with the thumb, and so on. The left hand then takes over the triplets at measure 5. As we go towards the body, it's going to scoop over, circle over, which helps add strength to the 5 finger. And as you get faster, it'll become a little bit of a smaller motion. So first, just feel free to exaggerate that motion. You can check out a wrist circle video that I have on Hannah number 1 just to practice that in isolation before you try to add it here. So those wrist circles will help you achieve the slurs all the way through. In the right hand, notice it has long slurs as well. We'll use more arm weight. Go down, roll, off, scoop under, over, main weight here. So very fluid motion in the right hand using those wrist circles to follow behind your notes so they're nice and voiced. And then when we get into the dynamics category, I'll give you some phrase goal. You'll have the heaviest weight come down there. So we'll use more of that technique in just a moment. Lastly, within this style, to achieve the legato, we'll use the damper pedal. We know that Beethoven loved, quote, lavish use of pedal. So we're going to use the damper pedal with the chord changes. Let me jump into measure 3 with that Neapolitan chord. So measure 3, the pedal is going to go up and down on harmony changes, up, down. Measure 4, change the pedal. And then it can stay down when it's the repetitive harmony. So on. There's where that blocking practice is very helpful. You could even just block the left hand by itself to practice that pedal going up and down along with it. All right, pianists, we have automatized our rhythm and our notes and articulation with that technique to arrive at our dynamics. Let me read a quote by Carl Czerny, who was Beethoven's student. Czerny later taught Franz Liszt, so a premier pianist. So Czerny was studying with Beethoven while Beethoven wrote the sonata, and he said about the voicing of this piece, "This movement is highly poetical and therefore perfectly comprehensible to anyone. It is a night scene in which the voice of a complaining spirit is heard in the distance." So it's critical to voice out this melody. Stay tuned. I'll show you some strategies with silent play. We'll go through beautiful dynamic nuances at the micro and macro level. So let's jump in. I would suggest perhaps you go back to that demonstration and you just listen and see if you can highlight within your score where that melody is. For the introduction, it's really up for interpretation. I like to voice the left hand octaves a little bit louder. And then the voicing switches off, I believe, at measure 5 with the melody that comes in. So softer left hand there. It stays all the way in the right hand for this arrangement until measure 23, where the left hand then gets the melody. So here's the downbeat of 23. Right hand's the melody. Right hand's the accompaniment. Left hand melody. Let me play a pour demonstration so you can see how much the charm and the beauty of this piece really lacks if you do not voice out the melody. Here is measure 5. how do you get that feeling of the complaining spirit, as Czerny called it? We're going to do some silent play. Let's jump into measure 5. We're going to go back to our blocking practice. Left hand is going to block in this position, but silently just on top of the keys for a very light weight, while the right hand plays with nice firm arm weight to the bottom of the keys. Here's measure 5, beat 4. 2, 3. Once you can do it blocked, arpeggiate it. Once you have that control, add a little bit of weight. Once you've achieved that voicing, we need to go in and add dynamic nuances. This is the Romantic era. It's very highly introspective. So every measure should have a sense of waves of dynamics. So we've given you some wave symbols to help you on that. Let's go back to the introduction. Within the triplets, they're going to really set the standard of the third beat is the loudest. You'll see it peak louder, but not every third beat is equally volumed. Measure 3 is the loudest of those thirds. So we're working with microdynamics within the measures, and then the phrases is the macro dynamics. So I've given you arrows to show the loudest point of the phrase. Let me demonstrate that with the music to help it make sense. Those waves. So we're going to keep that simile all the way throughout the piece for that most part. The left hand's going to be supportive. It's not just all soft. Think like the right hand's a singer, the left hand perhaps is the cello in the orchestral pit of an opera. So it's going to keep getting louder. 2, 3. So you can practice the left hand by itself with automatic notes and technique, listening just for the dynamics. So then it can support the right hand. Again, think like the right hand is a singer or a woodwind player. A singer would not just instantly get soft through the notes like the piano has to do. It would probably get louder through that. The left hand does the wave for it. Increase, decrease, main phrase goal. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Keep growing to the dominant. Our phrase 3. 2, 3. More on the repetition of this phrase. I like to treat these as 2-note slurs. More, less, more, less, more, less. Now the right hand can do the waves. 1, 2, 3. Decrescendo, take your time to the top. And macro goals are pretty interpretive. You can decide where you'd like to be them, but some general guidelines, they're often kind of around that third measure, the downbeat of the fourth. They're often at the dominant harmonies or even those unusual harmonies like the Neapolitan chord. At measure 3, often the highest pitches of the melody where the left hand goes the lowest. So use your ear, draw on your phrase goals so it's beautifully nuanced. All right, pianists, we've arrived at the style and mood. And since we've done such a good job working through those stages of the learning pyramid, we've really built in so many beautiful skills along the way. So one last skill I'd like to talk about is that sense of rubato. You probably have heard me playing with it. So that becomes from the Italian and the word translates to mean robbed. So we push and pull from the tempo. So be careful with rubato to not just think it's just a free expressive tempo. it has a very good sense of where the pulse is. So practice back with those block chords, knowing where the beat is. And then you can fluctuate there. It always is balanced. It might go a little faster, but then it comes back slower, so we have a beautiful balance. A general idea of rubato is that as you crescendo, you can get a little bit faster, and as you reach a phrase goal, it can expand and broaden and go back a little bit slower. So you push a little bit for 3 beats and expand back at 4. Let me show you how that would work at measure 5. Push a little bit on that tempo, pull back, push a little bit, relax it, most, broaden, pull it back, push a little bit, and you can decide where you'd like to add that push and pull, but don't lose your sense of pulse. All right, pianists, enjoy learning this very beautiful but simplified arrangement of the Moonlight Sonata. So many skills that you can transfer to the original once you've had some more time with these chords with proper technique. So take your time going up through those stages of the Bronson musical learning pyramid to automatize one stage of the level in a very solid fashion before you go on up, similar to unlocking the next world or levels of a game. Try transferring the skills that I've taught you here to learn your own favorite piece. You can leave a comment for me below this video if you'd like me to use this learning pyramid to coach you on another piece that's your favorite. Enjoy this learning process.